Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Ritchie and Coughlin. That the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Springwater of October 3rd, 2018 come to order at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? Carried. I'd ask everyone if you're able to stand for the national anthem and then remain standing for a bit.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Please remain standing for private reflection or private prayer. Thank you. Please be seated. I'll turn to council. Does anyone have a disclosure of pecuniary interest on any of the matters on the agenda this evening? Okay, seeing none. We will carry on. We have a delegation and deputation here from Ontario Clean Water Agency, and I believe Natalie Baker will be presenting the information. Welcome. And of course, for the clerk, just give us your name for the record.
Would you like me to? Natalie Baker with the Ontario Clean Water Agency.
Yeah. Pull both those microphones towards you.
Oh, I'm pretty loud.
Yeah, no, that's all right because we do stream this live.
Okay, perfect. So good evening, Your Worship, councillors, and township staff. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Natalie Baker with the Ontario Clean Water Agency. Today, I will be presenting Aqua as an agency with regards to who we are and our operations around the province. I'll also speak about the relationship that's been formed between the township and Aqua over the years and the operations of your water and wastewater systems. And tonight we also have Karen Laurenti here, who can answer all your questions at the end of our presentation. So Aqua offers the best of both worlds as a public agency operating for the public good with you and your residents as shareholders, and yet efficiently as a private company that doesn't receive operating funding from the province. Aqua is efficient with a depth of resources available to ensure safe, reliant, and effective operations. We have a depth of staffing resources with essential services agreements to ensure continuous service delivery. So if there was ever a strike, your operations would not be affected. We operate for 180 neighboring towns and municipalities, just like the Township of Springwater, with the mandate to protect human health and the environment. So we currently service 75% of the existing outsourced market in Ontario, and our clients are made up of municipalities, First Nations, industries, and institutions. We have approximately 800 employees, providing a full range of technical and advisory services. The scale and scope of our operations is expansive. We operate one of the largest membrane filtration plants in North America, the world's largest incineration complex, and some of the smallest communal systems in remote Ontario. For example, First Nations operations at Moose Factory on James Bay. We provide operations and maintenance contract services that balance financial responsibility, robust compliance, and protect client assets. An independent consultant has rated Aqua Operations the top 5% of 400 utilities studied in North America. As mentioned, operations and maintenance is our core business, but we do have a broad array of related services such as financing, planning, engineering, construction, training, and technical and advisory services such as process optimization and energy management. Our goal is to assist our clients in managing their water and wastewater facilities and associated distribution systems at every stage of the asset life cycle. Aqua takes a shared services approach to operations, which allows us to find economies of scale and cost savings for our clients. This approach allows us to purchase bulk supplies and equipment province-wide, which produces savings that municipalities usually wouldn't see. We use a hub and spoke model to deliver the service, where larger operation contracts anchor our hubs and shared resources are deployed to the smaller contracts acting as spokes. This structure reflects our commitment to meeting the needs of our clients and ensuring clients receive the support required to optimize their water and wastewater facilities. This structure also helps facilitate the effective sharing of management, administration, and operational systems to benefit you. Some of the surrounding clients that would act in the shared services approach for the Township of Springwater are the Town of Wasaga Beach, the Township of Agila Tosserantio, and the Township of Essa. So since 2003, Aqua has managed your assets through various multi-year contracts. Further to that, Aqua has actually been operating the Elmville wastewater treatment plant since the MOE days, dating back to the 70s. Our current contract began in 2014 and expires at the end of 2019. Aqua strives for the highest level of regulatory compliance, always aiming to receive 100% in your facilities. And in 2017, Aqua received 100% inspection rating at all 9 of your water treatment facilities. So under the current contract between Aqua and the Township of Springwater, we operate and maintain Mincing, Anton Mills, Elmville, Hillsdale, Deltrend, Vesper Downs, Midhurst, Snow Valley, Phelpston water treatment, and the Elmville, Snow Valley, and Royal Oaks wastewater treatment facility. Some of the typical operations include daily rounds, review of trending and residuals, distribution checks, chlorine, monitoring of flows, chemical used, water quality, sampling and lab testing, routine maintenance and capital maintenance, and compliance management and regulatory reporting. Aqua is working smarter through technology to ensure your operations are safe, compliant, and efficient. Aqua's computerized work management system has allowed your operations team to tag and keep an inventory of all essential equipment owned by the Township of Springwater. Each piece of tagged equipment has a unique barcode and ID number. Currently, there are 1,102 assets in the asset regulatory system owned by the Township of Springwater. So this system schedules monthly, quarterly, and annual maintenance based on owners' best practices and owners' manuals for that piece of equipment. The system also records and tracks repairs, as well as weekly checks in each piece of equipment, and schedules compliance procedures such as inspections and sampling. So the table within this slide represents all of the work orders generated by Aqua's CMMS system in 2017. So there was a total of 3,585 orders generated for the systems. 3,500 were all preventative maintenance to prolong the life of each piece of equipment. 4 were operational, 60 were corrective, and 21 were capital works. Each year, the township is provided with major maintenance and capital expenditure list for the following year. This list requires pre-approval, and we work with township staff to prioritize to meet the financial needs while maintaining compliance. On behalf of the township, Aqua managed just over $329,000 in capital work in 2017. Some projects included the digester cleanout at the Elmville wastewater treatment plant, the screw pump refurbishment, variable frequency drives installed at high lift pumps 3 and 4, and hydrant flow testing on half of the distribution system. Energy conservation is becoming more and more important as hydro rates continue to rise. The Independent Electricity System Operator, also known as the IESO, has made funding available to municipalities through energy conservation programs. Aqua has an agreement with the IESO, which allows us to facilitate grant funding without going through the utilities on behalf of our clients. As you can see by this slide, Aqua has implemented a large number of projects across the province and has found 1.2 million in annual cost savings on behalf of them. In 2017, you approved a capital project at the Elmville Wastewater Treatment Plant for a new efficient turbo blower. The installation is now complete, and we believe the estimated annual savings of 232,000 kilowatt hours will be achieved by the end of this year. That amounts to just under $35,000 in savings every year. In addition to that savings, I mentioned the funding program above, and we've received just under $23,000, which will be issued to the township in the first quarter of 2019. Aqua has 5 emergency response teams across the province. Each emergency response team is equipped with a large trailer with spare parts and emergency generators. The township falls within Aqua's Georgian Highlands region, and this region is equipped with 1 trailer for water emergencies and an 85 kVA emergency generator that can run pumping stations and small water treatment facilities. Aqua also has trailers available for wastewater emergencies, which can be called on in a time of need. Aqua has assisted many clients through different emergencies, including major flooding, ice storms, the 2003 province-wide blackout, the 2006 Central Ontario windstorm, and Aqua also played a critical role in the rehabilitation of the Walkerton water supply in 2000. Aqua has a strong commitment to preserving the environment and protecting the water source to tap and back again, and we ensure water coming out of the client's facilities are clean and safe. We also ensure that water returning to Ontario's lakes and underground water sources meets the highest regulatory standards. Our community partnership framework reflects the way we feel and our role in supporting local communities and the environment. It is divided into 3 key pillars: our community, our environment, and our people. These areas help guide our activities and initiatives and generally speak to what is important to Aqua employees. There are 2 programs that truly reflect this framework: the One Water program and the I Don't Flush campaign, which I'll touch on in the next slide. In addition, Aqua has also been involved in local sponsorships, such as our donation to the Shared Facility Project at the Elmville District High School, the Elmville Santa Claus Parade, and the annual Springwater Swing Golf Tournament. So to support local communities, as mentioned in the last slide, Aqua has partnered with the Clean Water Foundation on the I Don't Flush awareness campaign, which encourages the public to properly dispose of household items rather than flush them down the toilet. The campaign has reached hundreds of thousands of individuals in Ontario and gets the word out on proper disposal of non-flushables, which helps to shift the behavior and create a real change in the community, especially in your wastewater plants. The first campaign spotlighted proper disposal of unused pharmaceuticals. The second targeted personal hygiene projects such as the so-called flushable wipes. And the third focused on FOG, which is fats, oils, and greases going down the drains. We spread the I Don't Flush message through public service announcements, branded postcards, press releases, TV interviews, social media, and pamphlets that were sent to the township staff that went on social media as well as out in the bills. If you'd like more information on that campaign, you can go to www.idon'tflush.ca. The second, One Water education program puts operators in grade 8 classrooms in client communities to show the importance of clean and safe water and to teach kids about their local and wastewater systems. This program was born in 2014 out of the desire to strengthen and formalize the commitment to water literacy. We worked with a team of educators and Aqua operators to develop materials for grade 8 students, and we've now had over 1,000 students take part in the program since it was created. I'm happy to say that the Township of Springwater has been selected to be a part of the 2018-2019 school year. So our individuals at corporate office will be contacting local schools to have this program put into your schools. I've personally been involved with this program, and sometimes the grade 8 kids can struggle a little bit, but they were really involved in the projects that we did and the information that they learned. So in closing, Aqua is a full cost recovery agency that provides a full range of water and wastewater services. We strive for the best-in-class compliance and safety records and have over 600 certified operators. We value the partnership we have built here at the Township of Springwater, and we look forward to working with you in the future to come.
Thank you, Natalie. So I turn to council. Is there any questions? Oh, Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Mayor France, through you to our presenter. A very enjoyable presentation, very interesting. You mentioned something about an incineration facility. Can you tell me about that? What?
Yes, absolutely. So I don't know the full details. I've never actually worked at the complex, but it's down in Mississauga. It's their incineration complex for their wastewater.
What do they burn?
We can get that information from the other manager that deals with that, and we can provide it to council.
But they burn human waste.
Right.
They make fuel. Yes,
Okay, so it's energy from waste.
it's energy from waste. That's right.
Incineration, energy from waste.
Yeah.
Okay. That answers my question well enough. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Allen?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor French, can you just review for us the issues that we've had with respect, if any, that you've had to deal with in the last year in Springwater?
Come on, Karen.
Just grab a chair, Karen.
So Richard Eagle is the Senior Operations Manager directly for this area. We have had water main breaks, we've had other issues, but I don't recall there being anything of any significance. We keep a database of complaints. It's part of the DWQMS and the reporting to the ministry, and I don't recall there being anything significant there.
Maybe I'll just go to Heather and maybe she can comment on it. Director Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor French. I think the most significant issue that I can think of in my time here would have been the discoloration in the Snow Valley water system, and that was handled, I think, and you know, to add to what Natalie was saying, they have resources beyond the Georgian Bay area where they were able to go to other staff at higher levels in engineering and get chemical analysis on that water to be able to provide advice that probably locally or an in-house system you wouldn't be able to do. So that would be the biggest one I could think of.
Since you brought up Snow Valley, is that our ongoing manganese issue that causes discoloration? Okay. Other questions? Okay. Actually, I picked up on the membrane technology. What facility is that for wastewater treatment? I assume it's a membrane technology. Which facility would that be?
Yeah, we have numerous membrane filtration facilities. Most of them are water.
But we do
Oh,
have,
okay.
we do have wastewater ones. Would you like more information on them?
Yes, yeah, on the wastewater, because that's a catchphrase we hear quite often now, that with the membrane technology, the effluent's much better, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, that would be helpful to what you manage, because you might be managing one here in the near future. I guess my other question is that, so right now, you manage, I assume, the two Snow Valley ones, the Elmville one, and do you manage the Snow Manor Woods yet, or you operate, I should say? And, okay, and that's all the systems that you manage for us at the present time?
Yes.
Right, okay. And then the 9 actual water systems? Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder to receive this delegation? Austin and Allen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That the delegation from the Ontario Clean Water Agency be received. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to minutes. Can I have a mover and seconder and get it on the table? Hannah and Coughlin. That the minutes of council items 6.2 through to 6.3 be approved as presented. Does anybody want to speak to any of these minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Now, minutes of boards, committees, and other organizations. Can I have a mover and a seconder for this? Coughlin? Allen? That the minutes of boards, committees, and other organizations, items 6.5 through to 6.6 be received as information. Does anybody want to speak to either of these? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Almost skipped over something really important here. It's at the bottom of my agenda. So this is an opportunity to ask questions, this question period. I invite you to come forward, preferably something on the agenda, but we'll entertain any questions relative to township business. And if we don't have the answer, we will definitely get it back to you, but we do prefer agenda items. So I invite anybody to come forward, give us your name, address, and that for the clerk, and pose your question, and we'll see if we can respond to it accordingly. Okay, quiet evening. So can I have a mover and a seconder for the correspondence and information items? Hannah and Coughlin. That correspondence and information items 8.2 through to 8.4 be received as information. Does anybody want to speak to any of these? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Now we'll move on to action items, and the first one is public holiday and year-end office closure. Can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the table? Alan and Richie. That the report from Manager of Human Resources regarding 2019 public holiday and year-end holiday office closure dated October 3rd, 2018 be received. That the 2019 year-end holiday office closure schedule as outlined in the subject report be approved. Any questions on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Action item, Marshall subdivision. So can I have a mover and a seconder to put this on the table? Coughlin and Hannah. That the report from the planner regarding SU-2016-002 Marshall subdivision dated October 3rd, 2018 be received. That the attached draft plan and conditions be submitted to the County of Simcoe for approval and are hereby endorsed, subject to minor modifications. Questions? Councillor Austin.
Thank you. It's sort of a theoretical question. It's from Appendix C, number 8. I'll read it. That the owner shall agree in the subdivision agreement that all vacant lands shall be kept clear of weeds and noxious plants and shall be maintained by the owner in accordance with standards determined by the Township of Springwater. I'm just not quite clear. So the developer, through you, Mayor French, I direct the question to the planning department. The owner, the developer develops this subdivision, but there are some vacant lands, and the owner is responsible in perpetuity to keep it clear of weeds and noxious plants. I'm just curious about that. When they say the owner, is that the original developer, and does that developer have to do that forever and ever?
Director Spagno.
Thank you, Mayor French, through you to Councillor Austin. The purpose of that condition is to make sure that while the development is occurring, that noxious weeds and whatnot are kept down and that the site is maintained. So the owner would not be responsible after the subdivision has been registered and substantial completion has been obtained. So that's just specifically during the development stage when there's vacant lands.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Allen.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor French. Couple of questions with respect to this, and I believe we have some residents in the area in the audience who would be interested in this. The Part 4 that extends out to the street of the plan, is that part of Lot 1, and what's contemplated with that piece of property? And the second part of the question is, I understand that there's a trail, a walking trail, that is currently being used, and what would be what would be the ongoing ability for usage, and would it be affected at all by this?
Director Spagno.
Thank you, Mayor French, through you to Deputy Mayor Allen. I can answer the first one, or sorry, the second question. There's a trail that is located to the south of the subdivision within the Tanak Ridge development, which provides for a trail to the rail trail, which is located to the west. So originally, when the draft plan was proposed, there was a trail connection provided within this application. However, it was deemed that there was, that the slopes were too steep to provide for a trail connection. That was removed, and residents would have the ability to access the rail trail through the existing trail to the south.
Can we put up a picture and point out where that is, please?
My apologies, Mayor French. As far as that portion of the road, that will have to be closed up through a separate process to deal with the conveyance and the disbursement of that land through another process other than the subdivision. So sorry, I thought you were referring to the trail access to the rail trail, but as far as those lands go, those lands there are going to have to be conveyed and sold and split up through some sort of a surplusing process with the municipality.
I'm not clear on that. So you're talking about the trail, or are you talking about that? You were addressing the second part of the question. Maybe if there's a pointer there, we can talk about it. And then my first part was with that lot, as part of Lot 1, I believe.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor Allen, could you are you talking about this area over here?
I'm talking about a trail that exists in use now, and will it continue to be used? Maybe you know. No, it's a walking trail, is my understanding. As I say, they could clarify if you let them speak.
Yes, Councillor Coghlan.
Thank you, Mayor French. And for clarification, we're going to go west of this development. There is a rail trail from the Fry Guy right through back down to the golf course. So if you come down on Gibb, there is an access through Gibb to that. So the residents of this subdivision, once it's pushed through, would be able to use the Gibb access to get back to the trail.
Actually, I'll go to the audience. If you want to kind of pose a question, come forward so we can make sure we understand it clearly.
Thank you, Mayor French. Can you hear me? I'm Nancy Cleary. I live across the street. I do believe that the trail that Deputy Don Allen is talking about now is the one that I discussed with him. And we have had a historic access for the nearly 40 years that I've been here that roughly follows the boundary between Lot 1, Lot 11, and Lot 10. Lot 1 where it meets Alexander.
Director Spagno?
Right, are you with me?
Thank you, Mayor French, and thank you for the clarification. So as part of this process, these lands would be severed and they would be created as private property. Therefore, the access to that portion of the property would be removed through the approval of this development. That's why I was speaking to the lots, or sorry, to the trail that's located to the south that was originally put into the Tanak Ridge subdivision, which provides trail access to the rail trail. So as a part of this process, that historical trail route would be removed because that is private property and would continue to be private property as a result of this approval.
So that is why we are very disappointed to see that the originally proposed access between lots 9 and 10 has been removed, because now the access is much further south than it is currently. And one of the attractions of the whole village is that there's a loop walking trail that takes in part of the village and the majority of the rail trail almost all the way up to Horseshoe Valley Road. And if Lot 1 is going to be developed and have a house, we have concerns about the septic regulations, because does there not have to still be half an acre? And if you draw a line across the back of lots 6 and 10, which would include part of the EP and the gully, you would still get less than half an acre on Lot 1. Lot 1 itself
well,
would be
actually,
more than a half an
yeah.
acre, but you couldn't use it for your septic because the gully and the EP goes through the middle of it.
Director Spagnol, do you want to comment on that? And I just want to ask, sorry, did you give your? Yes,
Nancy
you have the
Cleary.
name, okay. Because I'm just curious, did you make any comments or provide feedback at the public meeting we
Yes.
had on this? Okay, all right. Okay, Director Spagnol?
Thank you, Mayor French. So, related to the septic question, the developers are required to provide for reasonable use calculations to confirm that septic can be provided on the buildable area or the building envelope of Lot 1. That is a condition of approval that will be required prior to any development moving forward. As far as the walking trail and the loop goes, again, it was a consideration of staff that as far as providing a connection to the rail trail, that the existing walkway that is under township ownership and that has been provided through the Tenax subdivision would provide for sufficient trail access to the rail trail. As far as the development goes, the lands would be private, those would be EP lands, so they would be not developed, they would be protected, and would only be the front portion of Lot 1 that could be developed on. So that is the justification or the rationale that staff used when dealing with the draft plan.
Deputy Mayor Allen?
So just for clarification, that the part of my question with respect to Lot 1, which goes, the narrow part that goes right out to the street there, is that contemplated to be one lot with a house built further back and a driveway to the street? So there wouldn't be a house on the narrow part, the house would be in the larger part of Lot 1?
Director Spagnol?
Thank you, Mayor French, to you, to Deputy Mayor Allen. The buildable area for the lot would be only the front portion of the lot. The back portion of the lot would essentially be zoned environmental protection. So the portion where you see the contour lines running to the west, that entire area would be zoned environmental protection. And it's protected. It would be protected and you wouldn't be able to build anything in there.
But
So-
the front portion doesn't meet the minimum size. And the houses nearby are on wells. So we're worried about that septic threatening their wells, because that septic, if a house was to go in there, would not meet the minimum standard for the lot size.
Maybe you can speak to Director Spagnol. I mean, effectively, nothing can be built that will not meet kind of the standards required, but maybe you'd like to comment?
That's correct, Mayor French, thank you. That's why when I referenced the conditions of approval, it was to point out that reasonable use standards would have to be met to deal with nitrate loading and things of that nature prior to any development moving forward. That may require the need for a tertiary treatment septic system or something of that nature, but those types of specifications would have to be confirmed prior to any development moving forward.
Anyway, thank you for those
I just want to
questions.
make one more comment.
Okay,
Regarding the control of the noxious weeds, on the portion of Lot 1 that we're discussing now as to septic in a house, the adjoining neighbors have been doing that for years. So I think they should get some consideration for all their work.
it is private property is our
It has
problem.
been private property, but there has been, until the Marshall subdivision came into possible being, there was an appointed neighbor who looked out for that property, who was the one who's given us permission to go through and use it. Now, he's not the one who's done the maintenance, but he has told us what we can do with it, with the blessings of the owner who lived in Toronto. So those noxious weeds and all that grasses that's been cut, that maybe the developer doesn't know has been done for him on that section.
And I see Director Spagnol making notes, and we'll definitely kind of consider that, but obviously the development as it, I can't take more questions on this. I've kind of stretched the rules a little here to kind of get clarity for Deputy Mayor Allen's question, but, you know, we did have a public meeting on it. There was lots of opportunity to speak to it, and that's when Director Spagnell and planning do require kind of feedback. Deputy Mayor Allen.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor French. I do point out that if you have further questions, you can just contact planning and submit questions to them.
Actually, I can't continue. This is not a public meeting. Director Spagnell will be definitely taking kind of all the information on this application. And we did have a public meeting and try and gather as much information as possible. Councillor Coghlan.
Thank you, Mayor French, and through you to council. If you look at the satellite image, the key plan map, if you follow the subdivision, the black area, and follow that straight down to where Gibb has the corner there, you can actually see the little dot, dot, dot. That is the trail access from Gibb Street back to the trail. That is township that we have there. So that's where it is.
Other questions of Director Spagnell? Okay. I shall read it again. Moved by Coghlan, seconded by Hannah. That the report from planner regarding SU-2016-002 Marshall subdivision dated October 3rd, 2008 be received, and that the attached draft plan and conditions be submitted to the County of Simcoe for approval and are hereby endorsed subject to minor modifications. All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Action report 9.3, always stop at Frid and Idlewood. Can I have a mover and a seconder to get this on the table? Hannah and Coghlan. That the report from the operations coordinator regarding a four-way stop at the intersection of Frid Boulevard and Idlewood Drive in Midhurst, dated October 3rd, 2018, be received. That council pass a bylaw to add stop signs to Frid Boulevard eastbound and westbound at Idlewood. Questions of Public Works or Planning? Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor French. I just think it was an excellent report by staff. There's, excuse me, evidence to justify putting a stop sign there. My question, will there be any warning signs leading up to the new stop sign to alert people that they do have to stop here? Because people who are used to driving up and down, might not be paying enough attention initially.
Director Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor French, through you to Councillor Hannah, that there will be warning the stop ahead signs, as well as for the new stop signs and the new stop ahead signs, there'll be the new starbursts that you see. They'll be up there for 30 days to warn people that there's been a change. There'll also be stop blocks painted on the road, so there should be lots of visual warning of the change.
Follow up.
Thank you. Any idea when this will happen?
Director Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor French. Through you to Councillor Hannah. Weather permitting tomorrow.
Ma'am?
Councillor McConkey.
If they don't slow down towards the stop sign, you could probably put in some speed humps. I think they're available.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Mayor French. When I first read this report and looked at the map, I was surprised to see that the two stop signs on St. Vincent were so close together. So I thought, so I phoned Councillor Hannah, and he said, by all means, you know, it was a good idea. So, and I took his word for it. It's his word. So I'm glad to see that this is being done. I know there have been requests for speed limitation in my ward. Most recently, the request at the junction of Concession 10 and Baseline Road. There was an accident there just the other day, and the problem is there's an S-bend which restricts the visibility of some people approaching from the north and people approaching from the west. And I'm glad that that staff goes out and creates the data that they need, and that we end up getting a lot more of these four-way stops. I look upon this kind of thing as accident prevention. We do an awful lot of work for fire prevention. We have a fire prevention officer, and the whole attitude towards the fire department is, trying to avoid fires from happening. So I think it's good that we have the same sort of attitude towards preventing accidents in the long run. So I'll be pushing, or I've already started to push for four-way stops at the intersection that I mentioned too. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Allen.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor French. Is this the first time we've used the traffic calming policy to come upon a positive result?
Director Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor French. Through you to Deputy Mayor Allen. In this instance, this would be probably the most significant result we've achieved from the traffic calming policy. We've had a few instances of lowering speed limits. We've had a few instances where the neighborhood didn't necessarily meet the requirements, but we put up pedestrian warning signs. But this would probably be the most significant change related to that policy, yes.
Follow-up.
Follow-up. If I recall correctly, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but did Councillor Hanna not bring up a notice of motion about stop signs on St. Vincent a couple of weeks ago? So did this get changed to this?
No. Director Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor French. Through you to Deputy Mayor Allen. This was already in the works. I think this was probably submitted in July under the policy with a written request. So we've gone out and done our research. Ironically, around the same time, well, I guess maybe it was August, that Councillor Hanna came to me and mentioned that he was interested in bringing the motion forward for the stop signs on St. Vincent Street. That has gone as a direct motion, and that's as a bylaw tonight, but there's no report associated with that. This is strictly a resident that has filled out the traffic calming policy request. We've done the research. This is what they've requested. We agree with them.
Thank you. Any other questions on this? Okay, I shall read it. Moved by Hannah, second Coghlan, that the report from the operations coordinator regarding a four-way stop at the intersection of Frid Boulevard and Idlewood Drive in Midhurst, dated October 3rd, 2018, be received. The council pass a bylaw to add stop signs to Frid Boulevard eastbound and westbound at Idlewood Drive. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Action report 9.4, Maple Crest Road yield sign replacement. Can I have a mover and a seconder to get this on the table? Hannah and Allen. The report from the operations coordinator regarding replacing the yield sign with a stop sign at the west intersection of Maple Crest Road at Green Pine Avenue in Midhurst, dated October 3rd, 2018, be received. That council pass a bylaw to change the yield sign to a stop sign at the west intersection of Maple Crest at Green Pine Avenue. Questions on this one? None? All those in favor? Carried. Have to ask Councillor McConkey. Keep decorum. Okay, action report, weight restriction on structure 19, Floss Road 11. Can I have a mover and a seconder to get this on the table? Coghlan and Hannah. Okay, the report from the operations coordinator regarding the weight restriction of structure 19 on Floss Road 11 West, dated October 3rd, 2018, be received. The council pass a bylaw imposing the weight restriction of 18 tons for structure 19 on Floss Road 11 West. Questions? Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Mayor French. When I first read this report, I thought, well, 18 tons, I don't know what that looks like. But I know there's a lot of farmers out in that area that drive a lot of trucks up and down that road. So I started phoning some of them, and I said, how do you feel about the 18-ton limit? And I got some detailed feedback from them. And I asked John Spring, for example, to put his ideas in writing. So basically, what they were saying is that 18 tons is way too low, that it would severely restrict farm operations. He talks about how farm equipment has become much bigger in order to remain efficient in terms of today's way of doing farming. And they're concerned, the farmers in that area are concerned not only with the weight restriction, but the width of that particular bridge. It was built in 1930, bridge or whatever, culvert, whatever it's called. Right now, he says that the bridge, I believe, is 20 feet wide, but his largest tractor is 18 and a half feet wide. The other tractors tend to be 16 to 19 feet wide, and so it's really tricky going over that bridge in terms of width, but the weight in particular. His grain truck, for example, he says, is legal to 23 tons. So he sent me a detailed email saying that the 18-ton restriction will be severely restrictive for him. He also forwarded me an email from Matt Hummelink, a farmer who lives nearby, and they operate a farm in Concession 11. And he said that the rate, their equipment will easily exceed 18 tons. The derating of the weight rating on that bridge would be a huge inconvenience to the operation of their farm. And a third one was from Roger Spence, who is also on Concession 11. They use that road on a regular basis with loads that range from 20 to 40 tons. Would be a major inconvenience to his business. And I spoke with Sam and Ross Langman. I got the same kind of information that the 18 is going to be very restrictive for farmers in that area. I spoke with Director Coleman, and she said that at the moment, as far as our 6-year capital plan, there's a plan to replace that bridge, but not until 2028. And it was in the vicinity, I believe, Director Coleman, correct me if I'm wrong, $500,000. What I would recommend is that, I don't doubt what the engineer is saying about the safety of the bridge. That's not the consideration. The consideration is how this is going to affect our farmers. And going forward, I would like to see more opportunities for farmers to provide input into those kind of changes. I know Mr. Spring, for example, he said that when the county did work on the bridges near his property, right in front of his farm operation on Highway 92, nobody consulted him. And when he got a hold of the engineers, they said, you know what? We don't have a single agricultural expert on our staff. So they came up and they spoke with Mr. Spring and his son, who's across the road, and they made modifications. So going forward, what I would like to see is more consultation with our agricultural sector. We need to keep our roads up if we really mean it when we say that agriculture is a big part of the economy in Springwater Township. And we'd have to take that into consideration and the advice of our modern farmers as to how we address issues that they need to help them carry on efficiently. So that's why I look forward to two things. One is the establishment of the Agriculture Advisory Committee so that we can be proactive as opposed to reactive, which we may have to be tonight. And secondly, that when the next council is looking into budget detail in the future, we might consider moving the repair to that bridge up ahead, much earlier than 2028. Thank you.
Councillor Hannah?
Thank you, Mayor. If I may be permitted to ask the councillor a question, that would be, did the residents you spoke with understand these were metric tons and not tons? Because there is a difference.
I'll check my emails,
But I
and,
think there's only 200 pounds difference.
checking my emails, I'll see the language that they used. Mr. Spring used TONS. Mr. Hummelink used TONS.
These are metric tons.
Yes.
They're not TONS.
Yes,
they're- yeah,
and,
tones.
Mr. Spence used TONNE. Okay, so 2 out of 3 used the,
Okay, let's go to
Material?
Director Coleman. And basically, do you have your calculator? Because it's the kind of 2.2, I think it is. So it'd be 40, whatever. Sorry? Okay, yeah, yeah. But I think we need clarity. Actually, I'll go to Deputy Mayor Allen because I have a question.
Thank you, through you, Mayor French. So my understanding that these farmers have been using this bridge with significantly greater weight than what we're recommending here, and has that been a clear and present danger? How flexible is this 18 tons? What other options are there between now and the time it gets replaced to be able to facilitate their needs?
Director Coleman?
Thank you, Mayor French. Through you to Deputy Mayor Allen. In speaking with the engineer, 18 was the recommendation. Originally, the bridge would have held significantly more, but as outlined in our report, over the years, material has been added to the top of the structure, which is now at least 15 to 20 tons. So this is, I guess, more of a safety issue as opposed to trying to inconvenience anybody. We certainly, as a township, would not want to be liable for collapse of a bridge or injury of people. So I don't think there's much more I can say.
Follow up?
How practical might it be to scrape off the accumulated surfaces just on the bridge part, alleviate the tonnage and resurface it and as an interim step until the bridge can be replaced?
Director Coleman?
Thank you, Mayor French. I asked the same question myself. Unfortunately, it doesn't sound very practical because it's several feet now. Originally, the bridge would have been installed when it was a gravel road. So the gravel's eventually been dragged across by the grader, and then it's been probably filled on, and now it's been hard surfaced. So it would involve removing all of that material as well as removing it for several kilometers or several meters back so that we have grade. The engineer basically said you could look at that, but it's not a practical thing to do. It would be several hundreds of thousands of dollars as well to remove that type of material.
Councillor McConkey?
When was it hard surfaced?
Director Coleman?
I would have to find out on that one. I don't know. Likely. Certainly the reports, I've gone back a few years from previous inspections, and it was hard surfaced for several years, yeah.
Okay, Councillor Austin?
thank you, Mayor French, to you, to Director Coleman. Some of the farmers that I spoke to as well were surprised when I mentioned the cost. You quoted me $500,000, the cost of Was it replacing the bridge or just putting in a new culvert? I don't understand the engineering details like that, but they were surprised at the cost. They thought it could be done for a lot less. Now, I think we have to respect the wisdom and the knowledge of the engineer, but they were wondering why it costs so much.
Director Coleman?
Thank you, my French, through you to Councillor Austin. I don't think 550,000 is unreasonable. We would be looking at a design. We would be looking at permits. We'd be looking at an EA process for a replacement. The 550 is a full replacement, not a rehabilitation. So that's not an unheard of number to do. It's concrete, so wouldn't be replacing it with a steel pipe or anything like that. It would labor would be a significant amount of that money in the contractor's bid. So I wouldn't find that unreasonable.
My question is, would anybody even know what the original weight rating on that bridge was? Because it's more of a culvert kind of thing. Can you comment on that?
Thank you, my French. My understanding in speaking with the engineer is the original weight rating would have probably been close to double. He figures there's at least 18 tons of material on that. Again, it was 1930, so it's hard to say, but through his experience, he figured it was at least double.
Yeah, I think obviously if it's in jeopardy of failing, we don't have a lot of choices here, but I do think we have to kind of interact with the farmers and see how we can address this. Is there any possibility of, even on the shorter term, of obviously strengthening the bridge? Because the reality is, my understanding is one of the grain trailers will hold virtually 30 to 40 tons, just the trailer. And the tractor probably weighs 10 by itself. Now, of course, they're going to go over separately, but I'm just not sure. We need a better communication when we're going to kind of change things. So, because all of a sudden, I guess today they can drive back and forth over it, but as soon as we stick up a restriction sign, they're subject to being fined. Is that correct? I'm not sure who wants to answer that. Bylaw, Public Works, CEO Brindley. Director Coleman?
Thank you, my French. It would be a charge under the Highway Traffic Act.
Councilor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor French. That culvert that you're talking about, I thought it was east of County Road 6, but it's west of County Road 6, right? Okay. Could that be replaced with a culvert instead of the concrete that's presently there now? And if it was, that could drastically reduce the cost factor.
Comment? Director Coleman?
Thank you, my French. That's certainly something that we can review or have the engineer review. I think that would be a question to direct to them. I don't know the history of that. So it would be, again, we'd be subject to permitting an EA process, so I'm not sure. But it's certainly a logical question.
I'll go to CEO Brindley and then back to you. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, staff can look at some other solutions, especially the reinforcement, but this isn't the first time during my tenure here that we've had a bridge prematurely age. Example, Vesper Valley, we had one that we had to replace on very quick notice. Obviously, there are things that are priority in budgets, and this is something we'll have to discuss as part of the 2019 budget, because this is something that it might end up being a short-term nuisance to our farming community as opposed to a long-term. But at the end of the day, from a liability standpoint, with too much weight, that bridge may crush. So that's our concern ultimately, but at the same time, getting it done as soon as we can in order to ensure that, it's not a nuisance for too long.
Councilor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor French. Just to pick up on that, CEO Brindley, I remember a few years ago, we had Rainbow Valley Road, and we redid, it was actually a culvert, it was plate style put together, nuts and bolts, and massive size, but it had warped, because of the weight, but it was replaced with another culvert as well too. And of course, they had problems, that was with the Marl Creek, no shortage of water there, but, I'd like to, I definitely support moving this up so that we can address this as soon as possible. So we had to do the go through the process and study everything, get started on it now so that maybe next spring they could do something and come back with some ideas. If a culvert will work and it's half the price, do it. Let's get on, we'll put some guide rails on either side or leave them off, but I'd go that route. Thank you.
Okay, could we at least amend the motion with maybe some information for kind of timing or direction? Would that be helpful, CEO Brindley or Director Coleman? I'll come to the clerk. She's going to tell me something.
Thank you. So council needs to keep in mind that they are in lame duck status. So anything over a cost of $50,000 is no longer within council's purview of a decision.
I was just thinking more give direction to research rather than spending money. Would that be appropriate, Madam Clerk? So if someone would care to, Councilor Ritchie?
I just, the clerk's right about the lame duck, but even we got started with the environmental process, like, get the ball rolling, that's all.
I think just initiating the process rather than being specific. CEO Brindley, you were going to comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're of the same mind, but I'm not sure if you wanted to find in the resolution that the staff move forward with the initiation of the research on the project not to exceed $50,000. Therefore, it's not beyond your authority, and this way we can at least start the ball rolling on the process.
CEO Brindley, do you want to provide kind of some nice, comfortable wording that you feel comfortable with? For anybody watching at home, there'll be a slight pause here while we create an amendment to a motion. Councillor Anna.
Thank you. While we're doing this, would we be looking for government grants for this?
I think depending on what the report comes back, we'd look for as much money as possible.
But I just wonder if that should be included in what we're asking staff to do.
Good point. CEO Brindley, it's been suggested here, it's not a bad idea. Should we add some language that would seek out any government assistance? If you want to add, yeah, please. Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder for the amendment? It's going to be something to the effect that it be amended and that staff initiate due diligence on initiating this project not to exceed $49,999. So can I have a mover and a seconder on that? Austin and, okay, and Alan. Okay, so that's the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment? Thank you. And now, back to the main motion as amended. And still is the mover and seconder comfortable? Coghlan and Hannah, you still comfortable with it? Okay. That the report from the operations coordinator regarding the weight restriction of structure 19 on Floss Road 11 West dated October 3rd, 2018 be received. The council pass a bylaw imposing the weight restriction of 18 tons for structure 19 on Floss Road 11 West, and that staff initiate due diligence on initiating this project not to exceed $49,999. All those in favor of the main motion? Carried. Thank you. Good discussion. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Mayor French. Through you to Director Coleman. Well, could you remind me what your answer was when you said what would happen to somebody who exceeded the limit? What was it you said?
Director Coleman?
Thank you, Mayor French. Do you mean if they were caught?
Yes.
There would be a charge under the Highway Traffic Act.
Thank
Okay. Moving on to 9.6. I'm glad we qualified if caught. Springwater Swing Golf Tournament Course Selection Policy. Can I get this on the table? Coghlan and Hannah. The report from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding Springwater Swing Golf Tournament Golf Course Selection Policy revised date dated October 3rd, 2018 be received, and the council approve the revised policy. Any questions of this? I think it covered off. Oh, CAO Brindley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The one concern that has come up during some discussion with council is not on, I guess, page 3 of the policy, that's not the highlighted part, but the part that follows. And the concern is, it says when a golf course is unavailable for play, just looking for more clarity. It says if a golf course is not available during the year that they are assigned to, the tournament will go to the next course on the list. The concern that was expressed was that usually we hold the tournament in either late June or maybe early July based on history. And if they come to us and say, well, we've got it available in September, I have permission to just clarify that a bit, just to ensure that if the golf course is not available during the year when the municipality wants it, that they are, and clarify that, because the concern there is if it's the next turn for a tournament or a course and they say, well, we've got it available in December, it doesn't suit our needs. So that was the clarification that was sort of requested.
So shall we? So the amended as the information that you just are going to add, is that correct? Councillor Austin?
May I suggest, under the section under background on the report, middle paragraph, where it says competitive pricing, just add competitive pricing and timing. There's potential that a golf course may not provide competitive pricing and timing. So would that suffice to cover what you're saying?
I think we're just going to depend on the CAO to correct the language slightly so it does deal with the timing and the pricing. And that's why we're adding as amended. So I'll read the resolution again. Moved by Councillor Coghlan, seconded by Hannah, the report from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding Springwater Swing Golf Tournament Golf Course Selection Policy revised dated October 3rd, 2018 be received, and that the council approve the revised policy as amended. And that's the input provided by CEO. Councillor Coghlan, all in favor? Carried. So move on to information reports. Can I have a mover and a seconder to get this on the table? McConkey and Coghlan. That report items 10.2 through to 10.4 be received as information. Does anybody want to pull any of these for discussion? Okay, a question first, Councillor Coghlan, then Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor French. On 10.3, through you to the Director of Public Works, of the options that were presented, is there a report that will be coming forward with staff's recommendation as to one of them?
Director Coleman?
Thank you, Mayor French. Through you to Councillor Coghlan. The request was for further information and options, so I have left it at that.
Okay, should we possibly pull that? Madam Clerk?
Thank you. So at this point, council would have the opportunity to pull the item for further discussion and present a motion in regards to the report if desired.
Okay, so would someone like to pull that report? Because right now we're just receiving it, we're actually not making a decision. Because there isn't a specific recommendation in it. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. And further to that, council also has the opportunity in the future to present a notice of motion to specifically state this report and state what option they would like to present. So it doesn't have to be tonight. There is the opportunity in the future for any member of council to provide a notice of motion regarding that, any of those options.
Thank you. So, Councillor Austin?
I'm not sure if it pertains, but just point of order, like, at this point, because we're a lame duck council, we would be limited to option number 1, because all the rest are beyond the $50,000 threshold.
Good point. Maybe because we're at this uncomfortable time, we just receive it as information and then deal with it as we move forward. That way we can deal with an appropriate recommendation instead of just taking the easy way out. Okay, Councillor Hanna?
Thank you, and I spoke with our Director of Public Works, and I think scenario 1 makes the most sense, at least it's a good starting point, but I would suggest in addition to the hash marks, adding no parking signs.
So, and sorry, I didn't open the cost of that was somewhat in 25. So if we want to, someone could pull it and propose that option if there's a willingness. Do you want to pull it? Okay, let's pull that.
Yes, sir, let's get her done.
Okay, let's pull that one. 10-3. Okay, moved by McConaughey, second by Coghlan, that reports items 10.2 through to 10.4 be received as information with the exception of item 10.3 to be dealt with separately. All those in favor? Carried. So, Mr. Hanna, would you like the table a motion recommending option 1?
Yes, sir, that would be my motion, that council consider supporting scenario 1 as presented by staff, with the addition of no parking signs on Queen Street to help stop people from parking in the crosswalk area.
Would I have a seconder for that? So, Councillor Coghlan, question? Actually, I need a seconder to discuss it. Councillor Austin? Okay. Councillor Coghlan?
Thank you, Mayor French. I'm curious if we could have, or if the mover would be open to having a report come from staff, because I think right now these were just 3 options. I don't know that number 1 was their number 1 choice or if it was in a specific order, but I would still like to hear from staff or from that this is what they're recommending that we do.
Do you have any initial comment, Director Coleman?
Thank you, Mayor French. My recommendation would be to do nothing. The sight lines and the visibility are all there. They all meet the minimums. Unfortunately, what we witnessed was driver error and was driver inattention for the people who went through the red lights. And I'm not sure how we can really ever stop that. But really, the situation occurs elsewhere throughout Elmvale as well. It occurs at the library with people coming down the street and turning right onto Queen Street and going through the red light. It occurs on Yonge Street at the church with people coming out and turning right and going through red lights. Unfortunately, I think in these situations, it's driver error and driver inattention. And I'm not sure that anything that we, other than a full-blown intersection, I don't know how we can stop it. So at that point, if you're asking for my opinion, that's kind of what it would be.
I guess my comment, I decided to spend some time there and watch that area because of the hedge and all that type of thing. And I would think, it may not make a major change, but I would think the proposed option would increase the safety somewhat. Maybe not a major amount, but I think it would be somewhat responsive to the residents' concerns and assist in some way, so I'm definitely willing to support it. That would be my only comment, because since we're recommending nothing, doing a little bit may be helpful, but that's up to the will of council. So maybe, unless there's other comments, we'll just see where this goes. Councillor Coghlan.
Thank you, Mayor French. And then the example that was provided with the stop at crosswalk, stop where you're supposed to stop sign, would there be a different, is that the only one, is that the only option, or is there, like, that was an estimated cost, so I'm thinking that we should be asking for a report to move forward with scenario one, so that we have what the signs look like, what the new signs are, including the parking, like an actual report on this is what was going to be done and this is how much it's going to cost, because I think that's an estimate that we have.
Councillor McConkey, or actually, I'll go to, I'm not sure if you want to provide some feedback, Director Coleman or CAO Brinley on that.
Thank you, Mayor French. Are you referring to scenario one, like an exact cost for that? You know, aside from adding the cost of the no parking signs, we've reached out to our line painter. We've got a price from the people who provide our signs. The additional cost would be the no parking signs if you added those.
Councillor McConkey?
I just know that there was a deputation on this, and I just want to make sure, did the council reach out to the people who made the deputation on these options and stuff? Again, it comes down to communication. I don't know if I want to rush into a decision tonight without communicating the options to them and having them know what we're discussing. So at least if it's on a report, it does allow them to read and understand and hear us talk about and ask the questions. So I would prefer to wait till, unless you've already spoken and you know, okay. So I would just like to sort of wait until more homework is done for that councillor.
I guess my comment is it's not going to cost a lot of money, and we may go to the next step at some other time. And I kind of think it shows that we are being responsive to concerns, because we can have a report, but it won't be dealt with until the new year sometime. And, you know, one thing that many times we're accused of is not being responsive. And it's great to have the belt and suspenders approach, but I think this does enhance the safety somewhat and shows that, you know, we're trying to be responsive to the particular needs of the residents. But I'm open, Councillor Coghlan.
Thank you, Mayor French. And I just, for the, I guess, clarification also, staff was extremely responsive. I believe it was the next day or the day after that, they were out there cutting the bush back or the hedge back to make, pardon me?
Director Coleman.
Sorry, Mayor French, the resident, actually, the owner of that property, it was requested to cut it back, and it was the resident that did it. It wasn't staff.
Well, there was a spring water truck there when I was dropping the kids off at school, so I assumed that we were doing the work. But anyway, I think that there has been a response to the delegation, and I think that having a report come forward with what it's going to look like, to have Ms. Popple and the group of individuals that did bring this forward to our attention acknowledged and comprised of it, I think that would be my suggestion.
Okay, we have a motion on the table, and let's see where it goes. Moved by Hannah and second by Austin, if they're still supportive of that. And it simply reads that report item 10.3 be received as information that council support option 1, the report with the addition of no parking signs along the hatched area. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So at this point, a member of council, if they wish to see a referral, they can propose a referral, a deferral of this motion at this point, because once the vote is taken, then it's either carried or failed. So if somebody would like a deferral of this, this is the point where that motion would be brought to the table.
Councillor Coghlan.
Thank you. I think, do I have to ask for a referral then if I want a report to come as well? So I would like to table a referral to have a report come from highlighting the scenario 1 to be on the agenda, so that residents, it's not under items for, correspondence received. It's an actual staff report action item so that the public is aware of what this council is choosing to do, so we can speak to the residents and the people who use this crosswalk every day to see that we're making the right decision.
Need a seconder before we can discuss, or actually, can we discuss a referral? Yeah, need a seconder? Councillor Austin, you're seconding that, okay. Now we can discuss it.
I'd like a
Councillor
recorded
Hannah.
vote if we're not going forward on this, please.
Okay, we're going to deal with, okay, what we are going to do is we're dealing with a referral at the moment. As soon as our clerk can finish writing. Councillor Coghlan?
Thank you. The delegation request, the information that was brought forward by the residents was to have additional lights put, or there was, I remember something about lights and they had a quote, it was similar to the stop signs in Innisfil. Was there consideration given to what the community was requesting at the time?
Director Coleman?
Thank you, Mayor French. The delegation requested a stop sign westbound at Shaw and a stop sign eastbound at Simcoe. As we explained in the report, it's not a full intersection. And then in addition to that, because there's signal lights in the middle of stop signs, you can't do that. So it, other than taking out, I guess going with option 2, I think was the all-way stop, that would be the closest to what they requested. But again, it would require removal of the signalized intersection, or the signalized crosswalk.
Councillor Coghlan?
Thank you. And while I think that going in and putting some signs in is an easy fix, it is going to increase safety, I do think that because this wasn't an action item on the agenda, I would have assumed that there would be members of the public present, and I just think that we should make this decision with the community notified.
Duly noted. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Austin?
Thank you, Mayor French. Just for clarification, when you read the wording of the motion or the referral, I can't recall, I don't recall you mentioning those blue signs that are in the picture there too. You were talking about the painted lines for the no parking, but as part of that option number 1, there are the 2 blue signs that say, don't turn right when the signal's red. And there would be one on Simcoe Street and one on Shaw Street. And I don't recall you saying that, and I wanted to make sure that those are in the motion.
No, well, actually, if they're in the option, we don't have
Okay.
to add it to the motion.
All right, then, that's
Like, because we're just simply referring to option 1.
yeah.
Okay, so, first of all, we're dealing with a referral. And moved by Councillor Coghlan, seconded by Councillor Austin. The motion now before council be referred. And remember what the original motion was to support option 1. So we're asking now to refer that the motion now before council be referred in order to provide a report to council regarding option 1. And Councillor Hannah has requested a recorded vote.
So for the motion for the referral, please state yes or no after I call your name. Councillor Austin?
Yes.
Councillor Coghlan?
Yes?
Councillor Hannah?
No.
Councillor McConkey?
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Allen?
Yes.
And Mayor French?
No. It's carried.
That motion is carried.
Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. And so we move on to verbal reports. Official plan updates. Director Spagno.
Thank you, Mayor French. I do not have anything new to report at this point in time. And the same is true with the economic development item as well.
Okay, and I'll go to Deputy Mayor Allen for county update.
Last county was September 25th. It was the first meeting chaired by the acting warden, Terry Dowdle. We talked about Ontario Works caseloads and the reduction of those. It was in record time, just over an hour. So there was nothing else really of significance that is worth discussing now.
Thank you. Municipal updates. Councillor McConkey.
Grenfell had hosted a vendor event, and it was very well attended, and we talk about economic development, and we had a count of over 650 people there throughout the day, so that was great, and that was the first one. And the next thing that Doors Open was also a great success. Friday, of course, you know about the children coming to Fort Willow, and that, so the school buses were there, and it was quite well attended. But on the Saturday with the Doors Open, and we had the Hillsdale Jail open and the Crossland General Store, and it went very well. And I'd really like to see next time that council take our cultural initiatives a little bit more serious, and maybe it was maybe a mistake on the heritage side, but maybe our invite, and I know Midhurst was the same day, so it was difficult for some of us, but if Doors Open is there, that is probably our only cultural event that we have, so it's probably an opportunity for council to show that they do want to progress in the cultural area in Springwater, so I'd like to see a little bit more step up in that area of that. But no, I think it's interesting because there was a grant for the one at the Fort Willow. So they actually advertised in the Newmarket paper, and because we were asking people where they were from, and there was so many people from like Orangeville, Newmarket, and so we're getting people from different areas, and it didn't cost them a lot, but they used that grant money to advertise in that paper, and it was the Air or something. So it's interesting, like, so when we say that people are looking for a destination, if we want to help Elmvale or something, maybe we start to advertise in, like, for our fall fair or for the Maple Syrup Festival. It's not just about bringing the Springwater people out, it's about bringing the people from another area out. And these people were so glad to get out in a fall day and experience something different. So, you know, advertising does work, and it was a paper, and it was, I think it was called The Era, that they all had read and got it from. So it's just something that you may want to consider, and if there was a cultural grant in the future towards communicating an event, I do suggest just don't keep that advertising in our area.
Thank you. Councillor Anna.
Thank you, Mayor French. Midhurst Autumn Fest was on this past weekend. It's the fall fair, I should call it, and it was, I understand from the people that were there, I was unable to attend. I was suffering from a serious back injury, and I understand from the people that were there, it was just an excellent turnout. The weather might not have been perfect, but everybody said it was great. It couldn't happen without the hard work of Lori Hanna. She puts in months of work. I hope to God she doesn't never do it again. It's too stressful for me, and I hope somebody steps up next year. And it couldn't happen without the help of staff, especially the young lady, excuse me, that's filling in in rec department, whose name escapes me, but apparently she was extremely helpful. Our fire service had one of their units there, and I understand everybody had a great day, so thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Austin.
Elmvale Fall Fair is this weekend. There's a school parade on Friday and a community parade on Saturday, and all kinds of events happening at the arena, including a midway. And it's going to be a young farmer's dance. Anybody know? There's usually a dance. Somebody puts on a dance on a Saturday night.
Councillor Coghlan.
That's Elmville Minor Hockey Dance.
Good. Any other municipal updates? Okay, seeing none. We have a, motion to which notice was given. We have one here. And I have a mover, and this is regarding contacting AMO and challenging, I guess, the use of Section 33. Do I have a seconder for this? Councillor McConkey. Okay, I'll read the motion. The Township of Springer call upon the Associated Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, to show support for the message made by the Board of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, which opposes any use of the Section 33 notwithstanding clause, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms that would have the effect of overriding local decision-making and democratic rights at the local level, supports the ability of municipalities to govern their own affairs and represent the interests of their residents. Question is now, CEO Brindley, I mean, we're going to put you in a challenging position here, possibly, because you may be the only resource to answer some of these questions. So, do we have any questions? Councilor McConkey.
Although I'm seconding the motion because I want to hear the motion on the floor, I'd just like to hear Councillor Austin speak to the motion.
I guess I'll ask a question first, and then she can speak to the motion. Question, I guess the CEO has to answer it, is that, you know, since this has now been challenged at the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has decided that the province has full authority, you know, is it wise for us to wander into territory that we have absolutely no control of? So that's my question, if you want to answer that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would base it on I'll talk about a few other things first, and then Councillor can weigh into it. For the municipality, well, first of all, municipal governments are required regularly to review their ward boundaries, and through a consultative exercise, meet with their residents and look at population changes, and we'll see that significantly in Midhurst in the future, and decide where election boundaries will be. So there's quite a process for the municipalities to do this, and at the same time also it must be done well in advance of an election, and then those are sent off then to the province. And I believe the province has to sort of nod, because ultimately, as the mayor said, we are creatures of the province. So on one side, they essentially said, we're going to change things, which is their authority. The concern I have as a municipal officer is that there was no consultation. And not saying that I didn't have the right, it's just that there wasn't consultation. And the caution here is that although after AMO, and councillors probably did receive a letter from the president of AMO where optimistically he has talked to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing with respect to, are they going to do this in other municipalities? And really, we don't know. But council should be aware that the Council of Simcoe County is now the largest council in Ontario. So our concern is, does council want to get into territory where they're saying ultimately that the province should not use the notwithstanding clause, or should council weigh into more about the issues around consultation? Because to me, there's that boundary where the province has its authorities, but at the same time, I know as a municipal officer, my concern is around consultation and doing what our citizens want versus what the province wants. And just as I mentioned, it may not stop there. Simcoe County now is the largest council in Ontario. So.
Thank you. Councillor Hanna.
Thank you. I can understand the motive for this motion, but my honest assessment of this is that there's no realistic chance that the provincial government is going to give up any power that they've gotten through the Charter of Rights, and no province will give up that power. That Charter of Rights and that power was put in there for reasons that most people should know. If they're not going to give that power, my sense, to be honest, it just seems like we're just irritating the province, and they're the ones we have to go to ask for grants in the future and financial assistance. So if we now have no chance of accomplishing anything, I was best just to leave it alone. That's my opinion.
Councillor Austin, we'll go to you.
Thank you, Mayor French. The way I've worded the motion was not to delve into the issue of ward boundaries and ward boundaries and anything to do with the City of Toronto. The letter that we got from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, as I recall, what it talked about was how Toronto is not a member of AMO, so it was a little awkward for them. So again, getting back to the wording of the motion, it's not specifically to do with ward boundaries. It's just it's a question of principle. What the Federation of Canadian Municipalities is saying is they are asking the Premier not to use the notwithstanding clause in any way to interfere with municipal governments carrying on with their own business. So what we're sending him a message, basically, and he got that message from a lot of other people, that the use of the notwithstanding clause is to be used for serious issues. And the reason we're reminding him of that is because he was considered to be using it, you know, in the case of an issue that was not crucial. So that's the message that I'm hoping to get through to AMO and to the minister, to the Premier, that don't use that notwithstanding clause to interfere with you know, the rights of municipalities to carry on their work especially when it comes to Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So it has nothing to do, or not specifically at all to do, with ward boundaries. And I think it's standing up. To me, it's standing up and making a stand, and saying, you know, don't do that.
Yeah, I think C.O. Brimley was simply using that as an example, the kind of things we have to do. And effectively, I guess that they could tell us that we want more wards or less wards if they decided to dictate that on us. Councilor McConkey.
They could tell us they want more green belt or they want less green belt too. So this would fall into that. They could tell us they want a bigger Midhurst secondary plan. They can do anything now with this clause. I did not agree with the process, unlike CAO Brindley. It's the lack of consultation and it's the lack of process and respect to the municipalities, the way the process happened. And yes, they had total legal right, and we cannot argue the legality of it, but what we can do is stand up to make sure that consultation takes place, because we're always taught that there has to be a public process for everything. Toronto had already spent tons of money to review their ward boundaries. If I had done a ward boundary, and I'm just using that as an example, if we had spent a lot of money to determine that Ward 4 needs to be split into 2 wards, and then all of a sudden he comes along and says, no, I'm even shrinking it more. Well, we would want to talk to our residents who elected us and make sure that that's what they want. Now, Toronto might want something different than what our residents want. I know I could not support the same residents that my MP supports without having a staff member or staff. You know, you're going to pay somehow. So I believe it was not used effectively in the right manner, and I believe that we have to support and stand up to the government when you feel they're not consultating you or keeping you, you know, just being heavy-handed rather than making you part of it and making the people part of the process. So if the wording has to say consultation, I would support it a little bit more with that word in it, because I think that it was the process that it was done that I didn't like.
Actually, okay, Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Mayor French. I think the key thing in here is that we're talking about the Premier using the notwithstanding clause to overrule a decision about the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So yes, the province may say to us, we're going to overrule you and you have to go ahead with the Midhurst secondary plan, or we're going to overrule you and you have to go ahead with the Greenbelt expansion. You're right, you know, they have the power to do that. But the question is, if we argue that, we appeal that under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, or any issue under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and we win that case at the appeal court, then he overrules it. That's the part that bothers me. He may, make a decision about the green belt without consulting anybody. We may appeal that under Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and we lose the case. Okay. But if we win the case, then he invokes the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. That's the part, then he invokes the notwithstanding clause. It's that aspect, that fine detail that I'm most concerned about, that is misuse of the notwithstanding clause to overturn a decision by the courts. That's the part that I want to emphasize in this motion.
I just want to help this along a little bit. I don't like quite honestly, I don't like the tag-along of Association of Municipalities Ontario and Federation. And I'll throw this out to you, Councillor Austin. I would not have a difficulty if it says that the Township of Springwater opposes any use of Section 33 notwithstanding clause of the Charter and Rights, Freedoms. In other words, it's our motion. Right now, it's just a tag-along, where I'd sooner do a direct motion if we want to say, we do oppose. And I think there's probably nobody in this room that would disagree that the process that was used after kind of nomination period open was inappropriate. I don't think anybody's going to argue against that. But if we want to oppose the use of it, I'd sooner we as a township stand up and oppose it, not piggyback on the back of the Association of Municipalities in Ontario or the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. Councillor Austin.
In that case, Mayor French, if we go on record as opposing it, to whom would that information be sent? Directly to the Premier's office?
That would be my suggestion, but, okay, Councillor Coghlan? Councillor Hanna?
Again, I'll just repeat, I support the whole idea of this, but the bottom line is, the province is not going to give up this power. So you say whatever you want, all we're doing is irritating them, and then we're going to be turning around and asking them for money or grants in the future, and they're going to say, remember the day you sent that letter? So I'm just saying, do whatever you want. I just can't understand why we want to irritate somebody when we have no chance of success.
Okay, Councillor McConkey.
Yeah, I tend to also agree with Councillor Hanna. The timing of this is maybe not, like when we should have stood up was when we were wanting to support the Mayor of Toronto when he was backing it. But it's a hard decision because it does impact us, and the process, I don't mind if they look at all municipalities. It just comes down to the process for me, so I don't know where.
Okay, Councillor Austin, I'll give you the last word, and then I'm going to call the vote, see where it goes.
Thank you. We need to stand up to a bully.
Yes. Okay, a recorded vote. Sorry, Councillor Coghlan.
Sorry to continue the conversation. The motion as it stands says, from what I'm understanding, we are supporting a message from FCM, but there's no context, like which message from FCM are we, like right now you're asking me to show support for the message made by the board of the Federation of the Canadian, but where's the message that you're asking me to support?
Councillor Austin.
First of all, the Mayor French is asking us to eliminate any reference to.
No, I'm just making a suggestion.
Right. You want to know the details, what are they opposing? It's right in the middle, after FCM and Brexit. FCM opposes any use of the Section 33 notwithstanding clause, etc. That's what we are supporting their opposition, or asking AMO to support their opposition. But Mayor French says let's cut to the chase and say that we oppose. So.
Councillor Coghlan.
Thank you, Mayor French, and just to drag this out as long as I possibly can, could we then have the letter written so that right now if I was to support this or not support this, I don't see the letter before it's sent? which is typically what happens. So I would just like to then refer this, have the letter drafted at our next meeting. We can debate the letter because I think we all have different opinions on this, and as far as I'm concerned, yes, fine, stand it up, but I agree with Councillor Hannah, and I do appreciate and take seriously what our CAO Brindley has said, so without seeing what the letter is going to say and how it's going to be read or be interpreted at the province, I would like to, I won't support it unless I can read the letter.
Well, I think it wouldn't, I think we'd just send off a resolution, wouldn't we, CAO Brindley? Yeah, or, Madam Clerk, maybe you'd like to clarify?
Thank you. So unless anything is specified, a letter that goes out with a motion just states that at its meeting of, and it states the motion specifically as is. There's no other context.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Allen.
Thank you, through you, Mayor French. Councillor Austin, did you actually see the details of the message that AMO and FCM sent, the wording, the preamble that they used?
Yes.
I'd like to see that too. I haven't seen that, so I'd like to see.
I recalled immediately after the Premier said that he was going to use the notwithstanding clause. He was going to present that to the legislature. Immediately after that, we received an email from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities saying that they opposed any use of the Section 33, as I wrote there. And then about a few days later, we received an email, council received an email from AMO stating their position on it, and there was a bit of not confusion, but it's just they said, you know, they were in an awkward position because apparently the City of Toronto is not a member of AMO, and I was hoping that AMO would support the FCM.
Councillor McConkey.
So the context does sound like it was all written because of the ward boundary, so I know that you're taking it a different way, but I agree, like, I didn't see what had come, and I believe our deputy mayor is on the FCM, so if he's questioning too, and at the timing of it, so right now, even though I second and let it go on the floor, I'm having difficulty supporting it.
Okay, Councillor Austin, I guess we'll make final comment and
I
so
just
we're going.
just want to reiterate or repeat that the intent of my motion is to make sure that the Premier and his government does not try this in the future. They've tried it before. I want to make sure, send him a message that we do not want him to use it for any other reason that would affect municipalities when it comes to Charter of Rights and Freedoms and him being overruled by the courts.
Okay, so we have the motion on the floor, and I do believe, Councillor Ritchie, did you request a recorded vote?
Yes, and I just wanted to mention something. Prior to 1994, we amalgamated in 1994. And when we amalgamated Elmvale, Floss, and Vespra. That's what created Springwater. And that was a legislation through the Ontario government, but that was legislation. This year, he didn't have time, he enacted it. But it is the power of the government to do that. And I agree with what Councillor Hannah's saying, that, okay, what he did might not have been right, but the power is there for them to use it, and they used it. Like, if you want to do something, why don't you invite our MP that's a lawyer, and he could question, and we could put him on the spot and ask him. So he'll probably tell you the same thing. He is a lawyer, you know, like, I don't know where this is going to go, but there's a hockey game on, guys. Thanks.
Okay, well, let's, okay, I think you requested a recorded vote. Just want to double check that. Okay, Madam Clerk.
A recorded vote was requested by Councillor Ritchie. Please state yes or no after I call your name. Councillor Austin?
Yes.
Councillor Coghlan?
No?
Councillor Hannah?
No.
Councillor McConkey,
No?
Councillor Ritchie,
No.
Deputy Mayor Allen,
No.
and Mayor French.
No.
The motion is lost.
Okay, thank you. Good discussion, though. And quite honestly, I think, I think the message has been made very clear as far as the use of Charter 33. I'm not sure we'll see that one pop up again. Okay, notice of a motion. Do we have any notices of motion? Oh, Councillor Coghlan.
Thank you, Mayor French. As we're approaching the holiday season, typically council makes a donation to the food bank, both food banks. I'm curious if we require notice of motion so that at our next meeting we can pass that so that the food banks do have it, both Barrie and Elmvale, have that in time for the holiday season.
So I assume you're talking about from our funds and that, yep. Do we need a notice of motion for that, or can we just, I'll go to the clerk or the CAO or the Director of Finance? CAO Brindley.
Mr. Mayor, just direction to staff to make that happen would be sufficient.
So do we need to put it on the agenda for the next meeting, which is November? So we can put it on as a direct?
Well,
kind of-
sorry, yes. And my hope was that if there's any other members of council that have, I mean, we do have money sitting there, and it is a time where if there's any other initiatives that can come forward so that we can start putting this money to the use that it's to be going for. And I also will, at the time, the EDHS High School Fund, there's operation or administration costs that associate or with that. What were we talking?
CAO Brindley?
You're not waving at me anymore?
Carry on, Councillor
So
Coghlan.
anyway, so if we could have, I'll leave that to Clerk Chaperone, but to have something on the agenda where council can talk and we can create a list and we can assign values to it so that at that council meeting, we can staff will have the direction and they can cut the checks.
And I would assume when we talk food banks, we have the two, and we'd designate the appropriate amount to either one. Councillor Hannah?
Thank you, Mayor French. If we're not meeting before November the 11th, I don't know if we are. If we're not, do we have to get something organized for who's doing what on November the 11th and where for Remembrance Day?
Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Somebody from the clerk staff will be reaching out to let everybody know what events are happening and who will be dealing with what events. So no need to have it at a council meeting.
Okay. Thank you. So, items for future consideration then. Councillor McConkey.
Well, since the staff have done the bylaw with the signage, I've been getting more calls, probably than the other councillors, and I'm dealing with another issue, and it's to do on County Road. And so I feel that similar to tonight's discussion, you got to reach out to the farmers and understand the impact of the bridge, and we want to see how we can move forward with agriculture and understand that we have a problem with the bridge. We also want to look at our signs and say, what was the impact to the existing customers? And we really never really looked at the existing customers and said, how many are non-compliant? And what is the amount of calls that you're going to get? Because all it takes is, I know right now we're reporting on a one-on case, but as the one-ons become more and more, and I don't like to deal with that in that manner when it's impacting more than one. I will just say on County Road, I didn't have the time and staff doesn't have the time, but I'm asking that staff review the impact to the sign bylaw on existing residents on county roads. Because county also has different regulations, and we have found too that county can approve a sign and it might be in conflict with what our sign bylaw was. So I would just like staff to take some time and look and give us a bit of an analysis on the existing customers, because when I reviewed, say, Sunnydale Road, even though I'm getting the one that's being brought forward that somebody has, proposed that it's in not it's in contravention of the bylaw. When I drove the road, there's probably several. And the sad thing is that these are businesses and long-term families and signs that have been there for quite a while. So, and some that haven't. So I think we just don't want to, I think when we do something new and we understand the change, we have to also understand the impact and the risk of that change. And I just would like to take a little bit more time to understand that with this. So if there could be a report come forward, I'd really appreciate that. And you know, if you want to use County Road 40, I believe that's Sunnydale Road, as your example for the first one. But I know staff needs time to do that. And, you know, when I said to them, well, I think some of the others are not in contravention, I don't want to report these people as being bad. I want to work together, because if they're all out, like, how can we help you? And how are we going to make it different so that we can? I don't know what to do, but.
Actually, I'd like to go to CEO Brindley, because I think there's some misconception. First of all, I'd like you to address the fact that how long has a bylaw been around? I know we enhanced it and changed it and updated that. How long has the sign bylaw been around? And without referring to the specific incident, the issue that occurred here was the county didn't follow policy. Maybe you just like to touch on it lightly and put some perspective into it, because and I think I think we all agree that it'd be nice to know where we're at with signage and that, but I think one incident triggered something that we realized there's some issues with the county on, and I'll let Director Spagnuolo speak to it.
Thank you, Mayor French. So as far as the sign bylaw goes, the municipality has pretty much had a sign bylaw, I would say, after amalgamation. So there has been a bylaw in effect for quite some time.
I just got a note here since 2007.
Okay. Now, as far as that goes, the sign bylaw, the way that it's set up, is it provides for specific regulations where, as far as certain types of signage, it has to be advertising for a use that's on the property and for a use that's permitted on the property. What has been built into the county's bylaw is that in instances where there is a township sign bylaw, it's the township's bylaw that actually takes precedent and needs to be dealt with or reviewed in order to determine compliance. So they both go hand in hand. So as far as that goes, any changes to the previous sign bylaw did not necessarily alter or put additional prohibitions on signage along certain roads. So it's something where we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, where when we receive a complaint, it's a matter of now reviewing our sign bylaw and its coordination with the county to make sure that the two tiers of government are talking, so that there's a clear line of communication as to what is permitted and where it's permitted along county roads and along municipal roads. And that really seems to be the crux of the issue that Councillor McConkey is referring to. That, in addition to that, there's also an issue related to what might be considered to be legal non-conforming signage versus signs that were legally established. And by driving by a sign on a county road or a municipal road, it's very tough just to determine that from a site visit or drive-by. So really the issue is I would say it's the communication between the two tiers of government, and it's trying to determine as far as what's a sign that's in compliance versus non-compliance based on the time that the signs were erected. So that is the crux of the issue, I think, when we're dealing with these types of situations. And because it comes down to land use, that's one other nuance to all this, where just because a sign has been there for ages doesn't necessarily mean that it's legal.
CEO Brindley, you want to comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also, this week I had a detailed discussion with the county and essentially the person in charge of bylaw, and about the concerns about coordinating responses and doing a better job for the sake of our residents, because there is some challenges. their view is that they issue a sign permit. On the sign permit, there actually is a saying on it that says you have to have the municipality's permission on it. It's actually on the permit. But we know that when someone has a permit, they think it's like a golden ticket and they just don't care. So our concern is we're still working with them on the fact that they should not be issuing a permit unless the municipality has issued a permit. But as it stands right now, on the permit from the county, it does say that municipal approval is required. But once again, being a resident, they come in, they see a permit, they got a permit. So they think, so we are at the same time also working with the county a bit closer to kind of help make this work better.
So again, I think that as discussion, we probably over a period of time, as suggested by Councilor McConkey, kind of, start scanning and, because we do, our bylaw enforcement is responsive rather than proactive. Director Spagno?
Thank you, Mayor French, and sorry to interrupt and jump in here. And I think the other issue when dealing with bylaw enforcement is that there's two sides and there's two customers here. There's the property owners who have the signs up, but then there's there's the residents that may not necessarily want signage littering the roads or creating what is referred to sign pollution. So that's a tough impact to the client or the customer, the resident, is very tough for staff to gauge because there's two sides to this. So I just want to make that note just before we move on.
Thank you. Any other items for future consideration? Okay. Bylaws. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Alan and Hannah? That the bylaws listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? Carried. Confirmatory bylaw. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Coughlin? Ritchie? That bylaw 2018-072 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at the regular meeting held on October 3rd, 2018, listed here and be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? Carried. And before everybody runs away, adjournment. Can I have a mover and seconder? Austin and Coughlin. That the regular meeting of the Township of Spring Arbor does now adjourn at 8:31 p.m. to meet again in regular meeting on November 7th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. in the Council Chambers Administrative Center, Minisink. All those in favor? Carried. Meeting adjourned. Thank you for anybody that's viewing us from home.